Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our presentation. This is your ongoing relationship with PJR. My name is Joseph Krolikowski. I am the QMS Program Manager. Couple of notes for everybody. All of you are on mute, but we absolutely want to address your questions. So please utilize the question portion of the dashboard. I will be taking questions at the end of my presentation. One of the more common questions that we get is whether or not the presentation will be made available after we're finished. We do make our webinars available in two ways. Firstly, if you'd like to get a copy of the slides, those will be available for download shortly after we're finished. And if you'd like to rewatch this webinar with the voiceover, we do post all of our webinar recordings to our YouTube page. And you can find the link for that by searching for previously recorded webinars on our webpage. Our topics for today, we've kind of got a two-part presentation today. The two primary topics are what to do when something changes in your company and within your quality management system. And the other half of this presentation is dedicated to the disputes process. So we'll begin with the more pleasant topic of what to do when things change. Now, PJR views itself as a partner in your certification, and we want this to extend beyond the initial certification audit. We want you to think of us as someone that you keep involved when you have challenges in your management system, and really try to use the resources that we offer to get the most out of your certification. We have a lot of clients that have benefited mightily from some of the resources that we have to overcome some of these challenges. Now, changes, I suppose it's cliche to say that change is constant. And in business, sometimes our clients go through significant changes, and especially if you have a tenured company, a company that's been around for a long time. Change is almost going to be inevitable in that situation. Now, some changes obviously are of minimal impact. They end up meaning nothing. Some changes can have really big impacts on a company's business and on their future. Now, if the change that you're going to be experiencing is going to potentially impact your certification, you need to keep us informed so that we can take the proper response actions. Now, you may or may not be aware, but when you signed your contract with PJR, you entered into an agreement that was bound by our official terms and conditions. Now, this is a document called the F3 or Form 3, which is available for any company to read. It's available on our website if you look for the registration document download link. Now, the F3 includes a provision that reads as follows. It is incumbent upon the organization to notify PJR in writing and in a timely fashion of material changes. Now, that wording, that requirement, is rooted in a clause from ISO 17021. Now, ISO 17021, just so everyone is aware, that is a standard that PJR gets held accountable to when we go through our audits. You may have noticed on your certificate, there's logos like ANAB or UCAS. When those companies come to audit PJR, one of the primary documents that we're being held accountable to is 17021. So that's where this requirement comes from, and we flow it down to you via our F3 terms and conditions. Now, if you continue to read the F3, it provides a fairly complete list of what constitutes a material change, that wording being what's actually referred to. So there's three primary categories of material change. So let's go over them here. The first of these is of a legal nature. Now, this is going to refer to things like, for example, the ownership of the organization or the legal status of the organization. If you're transitioning from a privately owned company to a publicly owned company, or you're transitioning from an LLC to a corporation, things of this nature. Now, depending on the situation, this type of change may have an impact, it may not have an impact, but it's the sort of thing that we need to be informed about. Second category of change, operational. Now, this is going to include any sorts of changes in what you might call the day-to-day operations. So the scope, what are you doing? What is it that you intend to have on your certificate? Changes in your processes, changes in key managerial or decision-making staff, changes in the number of employees that you have. Now, most of the time, these types of changes are going to have some impact on your certification. The last category of material change is physical. So this is going to refer to, let's say you're moving, or perhaps you're adding a facility. Maybe you're adding a warehouse. Maybe you are adding a whole second factory, what have you. It's also going to potentially refer to significant damage at a facility. So if there's been a fire or a flood or these sorts of things, and part of your business is not going to be operational, that is going to potentially have some impact on your certification. And once again, it's the sort of thing that PJR needs to be informed about. So 17021 says that when we are informed of a material change, we need to take action as appropriate. That's the actual wording from 17021. Now, what that action is going to be and when we need to do it is going to be dependent on what the change is and the impact on your certificate. Now, granted, some of the changes that we learn about will decide that really has no impact at all, and we do not need to take any specific action. A lot of the material changes are going to require a contractual amendment, particularly the changes that are of a legal or physical nature. Now, ideally, we are going to assess that change as part of our normal auditing cycle. However, that's not always going to be possible in all circumstances. And when we can't assess it as part of our normal auditing cycle, we are required to do what ISO 17021 refers to as a short notice audit. I've provided the causal link at the top of the slide here. Now, this same verbiage, this discussion of short notice audit, is discussed in the F3. So this makes it a binding part of our contract that we have between ourselves and our clients. Now, depending on what the nature of the change is, we refer to short notice audits by one of a few possible internal titles. You may hear it referred to as a scope expansion. This is typically what we use when we're talking about a new building or a situation where it's an existing facility, but there's new products, new processes, etc. Another term that we will use is an on-site assessment, or an OA. Now, this is intended to be kind of a catch-all for any short notice audit that isn't technically a scope expansion. Now, some of the other scopes that we certify, some of the other sectors, I should say, for example, IETF, they have a special term, the special audit, and special audit requirements fall under IETF Rules 5th edition requirements. In the AS91 world, it's referred to as special audits for aerospace. Now, in this case, the 17021 requirements are in play. They just happen to have another term for it. So what is going to happen if you happen to need a special short notice audit? Well, the steps are going to generally be the same as a regularly sequenced audit. You're still going to get an audit plan. There's going to be an opening meeting and a closing meeting. There's going to be interviews of staff and reviews of documentation. The big difference is when it's a short notice audit, it's a targeted sampling of the change itself. That's what makes these audits a little bit different. So let's take, for example, a site relocation. What are the things that the audit team is going to want to look at for a relocated facility? Well, we're going to want to make sure that you've discussed this within management review, that you have done an internal audit of the new facility, that you've updated your documentation, that your advertising and contractual documents have been updated if appropriate, that especially if it's a new facility, that you've set up your equipment and made sure that it's functioning properly, that you've provided training for any newly hired team members, that you've informed your customers and other interested parties, and then obviously overall, what impact does this have on the scope of your system? In the case of an ownership change, the list of things that we're going to look at is potentially going to be a little bit shorter, but very similar. Does this have any impact on management? Have there been any process or process control changes? And again, how were customers and other interested parties informed? Lastly, in the case of an existing facility with new products or processes, again, we're going to look at management review and internal audit and documentation and equipment and again, training. So, the list of things that we look at is going to be very similar from situation to situation. But again, we want to make sure that we are doing a targeted assessment of the change itself. That's the key thing here. Now, if you are going through a short notice audit, it is always possible for there to be a nonconformance. Now, any nonconformance that's issued in a short notice audit, it is treated in exactly the same way as those that come from regularly sequenced audits. Now, if your certificate requires an update following the short notice audit, the auditor is instructed to prepare a certificate application. Now, you should expect the auditor to discuss the contents of the certificate application with you and to make sure that you agree with the preparation. Now, our process for review and approval of audit packages is adhered to for short notice audits. So in other words, it enters the queue, just like any other audit would. Now, if we get an emergency request for an expedited certificate issuance, we obviously try to meet that wherever possible, but there is no contractual guarantee on when a certificate is going to be issued following a short notice audit. So with all of that said, let's transition now to the dispute process. Now, the dispute process is used in those situations where there is disagreement. Now, you may be surprised to learn we actually have over 6,000 active certifications in a lot of different places. Outside of the United States, we have certificates that we've issued in England, in Jamaica, Brazil, Japan, Mexico, Thailand, even far-flung places like Guatemala. Now, believe it or not, with so many active certificates, we process on average fewer than 20 disputes a year. So let's go ahead and unpack this part of the certification process. Now, first of all, the term dispute is used by PJR. Now, it is not an officially defined term. There's no definition for it in 17021 or even 19,011, which is the auditing guidance standard. Now, the term appeal is used in section 9.7, but even that term doesn't have an official definition. disputes and appeals are generally understood as an officially filed disagreement from the auditee to one or more of the conclusions reached in the audit process. Now, typically what we're talking about here are the nonconformances that were issued. And typically the dispute is going to be filed for one of two things. Either the auditor and auditee are at an impasse as to the merits of the evidence, or they are at an impasse as to the merits of the relevant audit criteria. So as Mr. Sandberg said, we're either arguing the facts or the law, or potentially both. So what needs to happen before filing a dispute? Well, firstly, you should be aware that we've trained our auditors to be forthright in sharing suspected nonconformances with you pretty much the moment they're discovered. Now, this is for a multitude of purposes. Number one, we want to make sure that you have a chance to present all available evidence. We want our auditors to make informed decisions, obviously. Now, additionally, if the auditor has seen all available evidence, we've also trained them to put up the position that, okay, I've seen everything, we disagree, let's move on. And we would ask that you, our clients, would respect that decision. At that point, the nonconformance, it's been issued, but it's not final. That's what this dispute process is for. Now, you need to understand that if you spend time arguing the merits of a nonconformance, you're taking away from the audit process. And potentially that's going to impact the auditor's ability to meet their audit objectives. And ultimately, it could impact our ability to issue or uphold your certificate. So again, if all the evidence has been presented and the parties don't agree, let's agree to disagree, document the nonconformance, and move on. That is what needs to happen. So if we are in a situation where you are going to file a dispute, our dispute process is performed in accordance with a requirement from ISO 17021, where it says that PJR has to have a documented process to receive, evaluate, and make decisions on appeals. Our process is called Pro 10, or dispute procedure. Now, Pro 10 is available for download from the PJR website. If you go to our homepage, go all the way to the bottom, look for the link Registration Document Download. You can find a copy of Pro 10. Now, your process for filing a dispute begins by reaching out to our team here at headquarters and getting a copy of a form called F217, or Dispute Resolution Request Form. Now, we must receive the F217 no more than 15 days after the end of the audit, and that's calendar days. And additionally, if you are disputing multiple nonconformances, we must receive multiple F217s. It's got to be one for one. So if you're disputing 3 nonconformances, you need to file 3 F217s. Now, the very top of the F217 provides a 4-part space for you to provide your information, your name, who your auditor was, etc. And the 4 parts that we need from you, first of all, the certification criteria. Now, this should be used to capture the nonconformance number that was assigned by the auditor. Secondly, we need you to transpose the nonconformance that was issued by the auditor. They should be giving you the nonconformance in Microsoft Word format to facilitate the ease of this. The third part is the most important, your justification. Why are you disagreeing with this nonconformance? You need to indicate what the evidence is, what the this additional evidence maybe that the auditor didn't consider, the interpretation of the criteria, whatever is your justification for disputing that item. And then in part 4, you need to describe the attachments that you've provided to us. And we'll take attachments in whatever format you can provide. So if you've got pictures, PDF files, PowerPoint files, whatever the evidence is, just tell us what you've provided us. Give us as detailed a description as you possibly can. Now, once we've received all of this information from you, we will act to schedule a dispute hearing. Now, the dispute hearing is chaired by our dispute chairperson and is going to include the following participants. It's going to include somebody from the organization, from the auditee. Now, this could be just one person. It could be a whole team of people. The auditor who wrote the nonconformance is also going to be in the hearing, and you will have a dispute panel. Now, this is going to be 3 lead auditors from the scheme who will make the final decision on the disputed item. Now, each side is given ample time to present their side of the situation, and it's possible that the dispute panel will have questions for both auditee and auditor. Now, after the hearing is concluded, the dispute panel meets privately, and they render their final decision on the disputed items. The dispute panel's decision is final and binding. You only get one appeal, and once that decision has been made, you have to respect that that decision is final. You will receive a copy of the completed dispute decisions. Now, there are 3 possible outcomes from the dispute process. The disputed nonconformance may be upheld. Now, in that case, the committee has rejected your argument, and you must respond to the nonconformance in the prescribed fashion. It's also possible that the disputed nonconformance would be overturned. Now, in that case, the committee has accepted your argument and has instructed the auditor to remove that nonconformance from the official report. You will receive an updated audit report in those cases. A third, less common outcome is for the nonconformance to be upheld but reduced or revised. Now, this usually refers to a situation where a part of the nonconformance is legitimate, but another part needs to be removed. It may also be a situation where, for example, we had a major nonconformance and it was reduced to a minor nonconformance. It may also be concluded that the NCR itself was warranted, but it needs to be revised to make more sense. Now, obviously, in these situations, you will definitely be getting an updated audit report so that you can prepare your response. We want our clients to think of us as a trusted partner in the certification process, both on audit day and beyond. We do hope that you will keep us in the loop when things come up and let us use our many resources to your benefit. I'd like to invite you to tune in for one of our other webinars. We do have a presentation on our Pro 3 and related bylaws on promotion of your management system certification. This is a semi-annual presentation on how to properly promote your certification. We also have a very popular presentation entitled The Interaction of Processes and Its Importance to a Successful Audit. This one is presented also on a semi-annual basis, and it goes over the process, the topic of how to define your processes and make sure that your audit goes smoothly. And we have webinars on a whole variety of other topics, everything from stage 1 audits, AS 9100, ITF 16949, and so forth. If you'd like to be kept informed of the latest news automatically, the best way for you to do that is to visit our website at www.pjr.com. Go to the bottom of the page and enter your email address and click subscribe. You will be opted in for automated updates on new webinars, changes to the standard, and other helpful points of information. I do thank you for your time and attention to my presentation. If we have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and address the questions at this time. Any questions at all? Okay, very good. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and thank you again.